Welcome to Backyard Cigars. And today I'm here with a cigar from a fairly new company by the name of Tres Lindas Cubanas. This cigar was purchased as part of a sampler pack, and it included a note which I'm just going to read. And it states, "You're cordially invited to light up and enjoy the gifts our ancestors wished for us. We present you with the finest Cuban seed cigars cultivated in Nicaragua and inspired by our grandmother. Let us celebrate the diverse beauty of the Afro-Cuban woman, and to the many who have carved a path in which to follow. Each cigar tells a story, and here is a cigar brand worthy of your attention. La Negrita, La Mulata, y La Clarita. Those are the three main cigars that they produce by Tres Lindas Cubanas. I'm holding here La Clarita, which is 6 1/8 by 52 Torpedo. It is a wrapper, Ecuadorian Connecticut broadleaf, and the binder and the filler are from Esteli, Nicaragua. So the band, interestingly enough, is made by a woman who used to work in Cuba doing the same exact thing. Basically, this is an homage to their roots. Now, this cigar video is about the importance of women in the tobacco culture. The many things that women have contributed, not just for every industry, but specifically for the cigar culture, the cigar industry. And today, of course, is a very sad day because none other than Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away yesterday, and many are mourning her loss. Here's a woman who pioneered and fought hard for women's rights. You may ask yourself, what does the Supreme Court Justice have to do with cigars? She didn't smoke cigars. Clearly she didn't, as far as my knowledge. But what she did for women has empowered many women to do many things in many fields. And that brings us to the current situation, which is that there are a lot of male-dominated fields where women aren't being given opportunities. Now, I have to say that the cigar community as a whole has been much different in their attitude towards women. And things are changing. And things are changing for the better. Because not only was this cigar made by women, but many of the cigars that we love and treasure are made by women. Perhaps the blenders and the people that have inherited certain companies are men, no doubt about it. But a lot of the skilled labor, and even in some cases, and this is a trend that I'm noticing more and more, even at the higher executive levels, we see women excelling in the cigar industry. So there are a lot of women doing wonderful things with cigars. And I had to mention Ruth Bader Ginsburg because She fought for women to have the rights and the liberty to do such things. And I'm just going to take a break here, smoke a little bit more of this cigar, and I'll come right back with some more information. Let's talk a little bit, just a little bit, about some of the wonderful things that Miss Ginsburg did for not just women, but for everyone as a whole. There was a law in Oklahoma that allowed women to purchase beer at the age of 18 and men at the age of 21. She fought that, and in fighting that, she was able to highlight the discrimination against individuals based on their gender. Now, for some folks, they may say, well, that helped men out quite a lot. But no, it also helped women out, because she was able to turn it around and highlight certain stereotypes that allowed us to look at things differently. Discrimination based on sex must be scrutinized at a higher level. This is something that she would talk about. This is something that she worked within the limits, without strong-arming, without getting loud about it, and simply without trying to create a new reality for women. She would simply work within these limits to the betterment of women's rights. You know, the 14th Amendment of the Constitution guarantees equal protection to all citizens under the law. So this is something that was part of her strategy, so to speak. And I'm not in any way a historian on Miss Ginsburg, but I know from reading about her all of the wonderful things that she's done for not just women, but for us men too. And without some of these things, yes, women would not have been able to move forward in some instances. But for men, I think that if you look a little harder, you'll see that she did a lot for us too. So she challenged laws that were based on outdated stereotypes of women and expanded the roles available to women in American society. She made it possible that the courts no longer assumed women were not capable of being primary providers or heads of households. She was nominated in 1993 by President Bill Clinton. I remember that. And she was a member of the Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. That's amazing. Born in Brooklyn and fought her way to the top. In one instance, she fought a case where a male spouse was denied benefits, was denied the military benefits of his wife because it was assumed that a man could not be in that position, that he could not be the dependent of a woman. And so these stereotypes were challenged, and she fought hard to make things different. So now here we are, and with all of the wonderful things that she's done, in the cigar world, we know it's a male-dominated industry. We do know that. We know. And because of that, certain things need to change. But that doesn't mean that the men in the cigar industry are horrible human beings denying women of opportunities. Quite the contrary. Today's cigar man embraces woman, embraces the desire of a woman to be part of the cigar community. We no longer frown upon a woman trying to establish herself in the cigar industry. We welcome it. This is a very pleasant smoke. Very pleasant indeed. Very earthy tobacco, mild, and it has really nice notes of earthy tobacco and wood. So, I'm going to read something here, and this is going back into time now, as I like to do. This is from the Cigar Maker's official journal, Chicago, Illinois, July 15th, 1921. And this was a journal that basically was put out by the cigar unions, and it documented trade and different events that were occurring within the cigar industry at the time. So on this particular issue from 1921, there was an essay called Women Cigar Makers. Just got a hint of sweetness, and this is burning quite well. Draw is good, gotta say. Okay, so I begin. Women Cigar Makers, 1921, Cigar Journal. Simultaneous with the increase in the use of machinery in the cigar industry has been the increase in the proportion of women employed in the industry. 10 years ago, 1911, the number of persons employed at cigar making and packing was 65,835 men and 41,956 women. At the present time, the number of persons employed at cigar making and packing is 50,375 men and 61,003 women. At the former period, only about 40% were women, and at the present time, about 55% are women. The foregoing statistics refer to both the organized and unorganized workers. This is deeply significant and reveals at once to the observant the meaning of the employment of women in larger numbers than men. In the cigar industry, they were unorganized, can be secured for less money. In the trust shops, where they work long hours at starvation wages, the victims are practically all women and young girls. A short time ago, our local unions were requested to report the trust shops under their jurisdictions and the proportion of men and women employed. There were 98 trust shops reported, employed 2,772 men and 18,611 women. That is 87% women. A complete report was not received, but we can safely say that the proportion shown is correct. We have spoken of the women employed in the trust factories as victims. They are victims of the greed of capital. But they are also victims of their own lack of thought and blindness to results. A woman entering the cigar trade is liable to feel that it is only for a few years. And therefore, when she is approached on the subject of the unions, she sees only the dues and the assessments and none of the advantages to be derived. For she is not looking ahead. She feels that the good of the trade, especially the future good, has nothing to do with her. It does not appear to be worthwhile to invest any of her time or money in safeguarding her job or improving her condition in industry. She is not particular about a strong foundation, as she has no permanent structure to build. If the working woman would analyze, she would realize that although she may soon be out of the trade, she is engaged in it at the present. She will, in all probability, be identified with the working class throughout her life. That the interests of this class are her interests, and that even if she has no unselfish, altruistic aims, she can serve her own selfish and no more effectively than by joining the union of her trade. And by working to increase its power and usefulness, increasing the power and usefulness of all labor organizations, thus making it better for her sister or her own children who follow. The good of one trade union is the good of another. A strong union in one trade is an asset to the whole labor movement. A woman cigar maker who devotes time and money to develop the cigar makers union and then later marries a man of an entirely different trade and discontinues her work as a cigar maker need not feel that even in selfish sense her efforts were wasted. Her efforts have added just so much to the general labor movement and to the good of all working people. Women employed in the industry should awaken to the fact that regardless of the trade, sex, number of years in a certain kind of work, or anything else, the interests of all workers are identical. I'm going to let that sink in, and I'm going to come right back. Now, while this article from 1921 is chastising women for not doing enough, for not being involved, for not caring enough, for not looking at the bigger picture, what they're not showing is, or what they mentioned very briefly was, the conditions which a lot of these women were subjected to, the wages that they were paid. And in return, they were expected to work just as hard, if not harder, than the men. Because the fact of the matter was that at that moment in time, and even until today, women were better at making cigars than men. They were just simply better. And that's not to say that these famous legendary cigar rollers from Cuba aren't the real deal. They certainly are. But just as there are legendary Cuban rollers, there are legendary female Cuban rollers as well. But we don't hear about them. Not enough is said about them. As a matter of fact, I was watching an interview with Carlito Fuente Jr. Fuente Cigars. And it was sort of an interview on, well, it wasn't sort of, it was an interview on the Eye of the Shark, the cigar that won Cigar of the Year, I believe it was 2014 or 2016. And this cigar, he named in part for his father. But when asked about how the production was going, how many cigars were being made, and you can find this on YouTube, he stated, well, he was moving around a little bit about the numbers, but finally he said, look, I can tell you this much. This cigar is made by two sisters. Two sisters make this. The cigar is exclusively made by these two sisters. And judging, they make about 100 a day each. And it won Cigar of the Year. Where's their legendary status? Why don't we know their names? Just saying. And the article chastises women for finding a husband and forgetting about the trade. But when you read other cigar journals from the union trade, what you find is the contrary. Women were striking with the men, were just as effective at organizing, if not better, and adhering to the rules and regulations which the union put forth. Despite their mistreatment, they were a strong part of that labor force. They were involved in many things, from organizing to striking to motivating not just women, other women, but motivating men as well to stick to it, to fight the good fight. And they did this all through the 20s, 30s, and the 40s. Even though society thought it was a vulgar thing for women to smoke in public, even though they were paid much less than men. But when something goes wrong, you have to blame it on someone, right? So it was common practice for the unions, the cigar unions at the time, to look for a scapegoat. And they were primed for the picking. Women were primed for the picking in this case. Things have changed. Fast forward to 2020. And we have a different situation. This is a fine cigar. I can tell you this right now. This is a fine cigar. And I just want to take a little bit more time with it, and I'm going to come back with some keynotes. Okay, so Tres Lindas Cubanas is the very first cigar company owned by Afro-Cuban women, not only in Miami, but in the United States of America. They love to embrace the shock that men have at times of women in the cigar industry, whether it be from smoking a cigar to owning a cigar company. They have seen certain attitudes towards them owning the company themselves. They've also acknowledged that, hey, they're the face of the company, but they could have easily hired some sexy models to be the face of the company. But they chose not to. They wanted it to be about them and the culture that they represent. So initially this cigar started off very earthy, some grassy notes, some woody notes, and now it's transitioned to some sweetness and some more deep earthy tobacco notes, and those woody notes have sort of tapered off, and they're light, but they're in the background. Hints of cedar as well. Very nice. So some of the things that I'm going to read now are some of the things that Yvonne and Yvette, twin sisters, Yvonne and Yvette Rodriguez, do in addition to just owning this cigar company. They volunteer with Women of Tomorrow, at-risk teenagers. They're involved in community organization as well as forming a community organization. One of their dreams, is to one day own a lot of a farm in Cuba and produce some Cuban cigars. They grew up in South Miami Heights. This cigar company began in 2014, has really seen more of a boom in the last year or two. And the brand, they say, taps into a powerful truth that most women working on cigars in Cuba are Afro-Cuban. And they celebrate the diverse beauty of Cuban women with the names of the three cigars: La Clarita, meaning the light-skinned one; La Mulata, meaning the interracial one; La Negrita, for the dark-skinned one. Tres Lindas Cubanas is actually the name of a Cuban song by Orquesta Aragon. And they're also inspired by their grandma, who smoked cigars and drank rum while sitting back on a rocking chair. And grandma was one tough cookie. She instilled in them this sense of pride in being Afro-Cuban, in being strong women, in enjoying everything that was a part of their culture, from the music to the rum to the cigars. So it comes as no surprise to me that they will welcome anyone to challenge their right to own a cigar company and to smoke cigars and tell women that, hey, you're part of this culture too. You're part of it all. This isn't just for the men. This is for everyone. I like that. Because I like a strong woman. And I think that that's important in today's world. Instead of objectifying women in the cigar industry and culture, we should inspire them and motivate them to be a part of the club, to be a part of the community. Not just to be players in the game, but to be owners in the game. And my hat's off to Las Tres Lindas Cubanas, Yvette and Yvonne Rodriguez. Because I will be buying more of these cigars, because I've never smoked them before and I did not know what to expect. And I am coming to find that this is a very high quality premium cigar. This is La Clarita, and it is Ecuadorian, Connecticut broadleaf, smooth as butter. Really is. And with this, I will end this video and say one last thing. And that is, if you know anyone who has a dream that seems impossible, try not to crush it. Try not to dissuade them from doing something that may seem impossible. Because you never know. Something that someone else accomplishes can bring you some joy, can bring you some much treasured joy. And that's what I'm getting right here, right now. I'm getting a good moment with a really good cigar. And I just want to say to everyone, thank you for watching. Till next time, women in the cigar culture and the importance of women in the cigar culture. Thank you.